2 years ago on In the Know, we told you of the possible adoption of legislation related to kidney transplants that could potentially save millions of taxpayer dollars and, more importantly, save lives. Today, we revisit that issue in this episode of In the Know. There are hundreds of Barbadians currently on dialysis, a procedure to remove waste products and excess fluid from the blood when the kidneys stop functioning. The majority of those living with end-stage renal failure come to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital 2 to 3 times a week for 4 hours of dialysis. It's a major life adjustment for the individual and costs over $20 million per year, paid for by government. Renal transplant surgeon Dr. Margaret Oshea tells us what's included in the Human Tissue Transplant Bill that was laid in Parliament in 2023, examines dialysis versus transplant, and shares her views on the opportunity for the region to unite to form a centralized transplant network. We'll also accompany dialysis patient Troy Thompson to his appointment and talk about how his life has changed since his diagnosis. I'm Crystal Hoyt, and this is In the Know. Dr. Oshea, thank you for making the time. How common is chronic kidney disease in Barbados, and what are the leading causes?
We're not quite sure the actual number of patients with chronic kidney disease. We can extrapolate from how much patients we have on dialysis, which is about 350. So just based on international countries that have this information, usually ratio-wise, if you have about 350 on dialysis, you can anticipate about 20,000 will be having chronic kidney disease. And commonest causes will be the NCDs, the diabetes, hypertension, which is increasing, year on year in our country. So, but we do have other causes: polycystic kidney disease. People have renal stones not managed. Sometimes it's infection in the kidneys, and some people born with congenital abnormalities that affect the kidneys. But I would say majority is from the non-communicable diseases.
Are you seeing an increase of patients being diagnosed with kidney disease in any particular age range?
We are seeing an increase in the younger population, 35 to 55. When I speak to my nephrology colleagues, there's definitely an increase in that. And again, attributed to, increasing in the diabetes, the increasing in the hypertension because of, also increasing in obesity, overweight, that we are seeing in the general population.
In terms of diagnosing, how accessible is early screening of kidney disease?
Very accessible because it really is a blood test. So you can get it done at your polyclinic. There's actually a foundation, Forlam Foundation, that does them for free in Carrington Village. You can go there and get a kidney test. But you can ask any on your doctors in the polyclinic, or when you come to any doctor you go to, can I have my kidney function test checked? And it's a blood test, and that will tell you whether your kidneys are in good shape.
What are the biggest challenges patients face in managing kidney disease?
Lifestyle adjustments. Obviously, if they weren't doing healthy lifestyle before, they need to do that. And then there are a lot of dietary adjustments. So a lot of things you can't eat. And then a lot of times things that you can't drink, like volumes of fluid. You have to be careful with that because you don't want to get overloaded. So, and then certain medications need to be adjusted, things you shouldn't take that might affect the kidney negatively. So you have to be really strict with your diet. And you have to be start exercising, and you have to be strict with your fluid intake. You can have dialysis 2 ways. You can have dialysis with hemodialysis, where either you have a fistula created or you have a catheter in the neck, and then you come to the dialysis, the artificial kidney unit here at the hospital, or any of the satellite units, and you go ideally 3 times a week. It's about 3 to 4 hours, and the blood comes out of the body, goes into the machine. All of the toxins are taken out and is put back into you. Unfortunately, many of our patients don't get 3 times a week because it's not possible. We don't have enough, in terms of the nursing staff and the chairs, to give 3 times a week. So a lot of them get 2 times a week, which is not ideal. The other option is peritoneal dialysis, which is when you have a catheter put in the abdomen and fluid is put in, and that cleanses, toxins are put into that fluid, and that fluid comes back out. That one you can do at home. and it's good for patients and more flexible. But, then there's some infection risk. So pros and cons to each one. Your kidney doctor will tell you which one you should do. Challenges on dialysis, obviously having to come to the unit. And during that time, it's at least 3 to 4 hours on the machine, getting the blood cleansed. And then they're taking fluid off as well. So it can be very draining. Most patients say they need a day after just to recuperate of the dialysis, the day they have on dialysis. And sometimes, they do about 4 shifts here, so they can start very early in the morning, and sometimes they end late at night. So it's very taxing on the patients, and it really is very draining. And you kind of feel that you're just getting through during, that time of dialysis.
When it comes to end-stage renal failure, are there additional options besides dialysis or transplants?
No. It's either you get a dialysis to cleanse the blood, so the kidneys are no longer working. When we say end stage, the kidneys don't work to filter the blood. So you need to either have a machine to do it for you with hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis, or you need a new kidney.
Speaking of transplants, studies show that while dialysis is a crucial treatment, transplants provide a better quality of life for patients. So how many kidney transplants are typically performed in Barbados each year?
Right now, we are coming out of COVID, so we've done 3 this year. We hope to do at least another 1, hopefully 2. So we were on average about 4 a year when we restarted the program in 2016, and then it fell off during COVID. But I think we're back on track to get to 4, at least for this year. I mean, ideally, as a living donor, if we could do 1 a month, it would be great. So maybe 10. That's within what we would have as a budget to do for what we are allotted in terms of funds. And kidney transplantation does provide you a better quality of life and a quantity of life. So dialysis, limits your life expectancy because, it's an artificial way of cleansing the blood. So it does affect the heart negatively and the blood vessels. So getting a transplant, which is pretty much a new kidney, puts you back on track to, your average patient. You have to take your medications to keep the kidney, viable. But you certainly are free of dialysis and free to live your life. You can go back to your diet that you were on before. Obviously, take certain care with exposure to an infective situation because you're immunosuppressed. But you live longer and you definitely live a better life. You can go on and have a family. Your fertility increases in terms of getting children, both for men and women. So certainly you're more productive after transplant.
What is the process for a patient in Barbados to be approved for a kidney transplant?
Starts with a nephrologist. Obviously, that's the person going to diagnose you with the end-stage renal disease. And then they will refer, once you've expressed an interest, of course it's offered. And currently we're only doing living donor. So once you express an interest and you have a donor, you get referred to our transplant coordinator. And then she will vet both the donor and the recipient. You go through then a series of tests, referrals to like myself, the transplant surgeon, the anesthetist who will put you to sleep for the operation, psychological assessments, and a whole host of, cardiac, heart tests, further blood tests, viral tests. And then finally we do what we call a cross match between you and the donor to make sure you're a match, and there will be no rejection once the kidney is put in. So first say to your kidney specialist or nephrologist that you're interested in transplant, and then you get the referral to coordinator, and then after that all the tests are done, step-by-step process. Sometimes things come up that need to be further investigated. The whole process takes at least 6 months to a year to get all the tests in for both patients.
And what is the success rate?
We have, in terms of our recipient success rate, it's close to 90%, and we have 100% donor survival.
If you can speak to someone who is considering donating their kidney, what would you say?
I would say it's a safe operation, definitely. We do everything in terms of workup to make sure that you're very healthy, because the last thing we want is that you would, your kidney that is left behind, you have 2 kidneys, you just need 1. We want to make sure that 1 kidney lasts you for the rest of your life, right? So it's safe, and everything is done to make sure that you are never going to be a patient that would need dialysis yourself or have a kidney problem, right? I mean, life isn't 100% perfect. We can't predict everything, but I would encourage you to come forward. It's a fantastic gift, and you can be rest assured that, all the steps are taken to make sure it's a safe operation for you, and that you also, after the surgery, live a long and healthy life.
Earlier, you mentioned living donor transplants. For our viewers, explain how deceased donor transplants work.
So living, as I said, you were alive and you want to give a kidney to a loved one, friend, family member, what have you. Now, with deceased donation, you are basically declared dead. It's either brain dead or dead from circulatory arrest. The most controlled way is if a person has a significant head trauma, brain injury for whatever reason. Maybe they had trauma to the head, maybe it was somebody who was drowning, something like that, and then their brain suffers. There's no more blood going there to keep it going. So those patients then are declared brain dead. And in countries where you can declare somebody dead in this type of way, the death certificate is written at that time. So then you really have now a dead person, because there's no coming back from brain death. Once you're declared brain dead, these patients are on ventilators. If you stop the ventilator, the patient's going to die. Their heart is going to stop beating, because their brain cannot recover. And in countries where they have the law, these patients, relatives, or even the patient before they die can say, I want to give my organs to help somebody else. And at least 12 of those organs can be transplanted into other people to make their life continue. And in countries where this is law, you can put on your driver's license or whatever, and something good can come out of a tragedy.
2 years after we first spoke, you're still advocating for deceased donor legislation. The Human Tissue Transplant Bill has been laid in the lower house for quite some time, but has not been passed by Parliament. For those that are unfamiliar, tell us about the bill that you had an input in.
The bill has been laid in Parliament. It has been fully drafted by many stakeholders, the Medical Association. We had input from members at QEH as well, and also the Chief Parliamentary Council. All of these persons drafted the bill, and then it was laid in Parliament. The bill speaks to the diagnosis of brain death as a form of death. So that way, if somebody is declared brain dead, we can then procure the organs from these persons in order to help somebody else. This current bill is what we call an opt-in, where the relatives would have to be approached. We would encourage people to do an advance directive so the relatives know what they would want if something happened to them, like in that type of tragedy. And it also decides who can declare the brain death and the steps that need to be taken, and also what happens and who approaches the patient, and it's making sure that there is no money passing, it's fully transparent. So all the ethical part is there. And it's very important that whoever declares the brain death, that person has no association with the transplant team, because there should be no way that that process of declaration of brain death is affected by if somebody wants organs. So all that is laid out in the bill to make sure that everything is done ethically and the family is approached in an appropriate way. And if they say yes, then the transplant team would come in to decide whether the organs are suitable for donation.
What do you think is preventing the bill from moving forward?
I am not sure. I know there are a lot of things going on in the country in terms of what the government sees as priorities. I guess at this time it may not be at the top, but I have been assured that it is something that the government is very keen on. So I am just putting faith that when the powers that be are ready, at least they know that it's there and it's ready to go.
How much is dialysis costing the hospital?
Dialysis is expensive. We anticipate about $35,000 a year per patient. It costs the hospital, the government pays, at least the hospital budget is about 12% of the hospital budget for that procedure alone to happen. And many studies have shown and local data that you can drop the cost of managing patients like this significantly if they're transplanted, because after they get the transplant, then they just need the medications, right? And then they're back to work, making families, so the productivity. So there are a lot of other costs that are built in there that we'd actually go and quantify. But these patients then, contribute back to the society in a positive way, and it can be a financial way as well. But just from the bare cost of the dialysis compared to transplant, there's a significant savings. And certainly these patients, if we were to at least take a fraction of them off of dialysis, we would save the hospital a lot of money. And of course, then the Ministry of Health.
As a medical professional experienced in transplantation, do you believe it is feasible to establish a centralized organ sharing network in the Caribbean, similar to the United States UNOS system?
Definitely. We are a very close unit in terms of the Caribbean surgeons. We recently came together and restarted the program in the Bahamas, and they had their first transplant done after a 30-year hiatus in June, and that was a collaboration for the Caribbean College of Surgeons. And we feel strongly. We have great contacts across the region, and we're very united. And we all feel strongly about having this organ sharing within the region. If you have a patient that needs kidney in Barbados, and maybe there's somebody who unfortunately passes away in Trinidad, and they're a match, that kidney can come in Trinidad to Barbados, and vice versa. Same thing in Guyana, Bahamas, Jamaica, what have you. And you're seeing popping up more and more in the media, young people who have no donors that can benefit from a deceased donor transplant, and then they're having to go international. Whereas, it could happen here in the region and at a significantly reduced cost. Because when you look at the cost of transplantation in these first world places, much less cost, significantly reduced costs in the region to have it done at home. And proof of concept is there. They are being done, and they're being done safely, and patients are doing well. So I think it's a win-win to establish something like that in the region.
Dr. Oshea, I appreciate you making the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming up, we're joining Shoy Thompson, a 24-year-old young man, to his dialysis appointment. Stay with us. On October 19th, 24-year-old Shoy Thompson's life changed forever.
I was diagnosed with stage 5 kidney disease. I was over in New York. I was just on vacation, and my family decided to take me to the hospital because just throwing up a lot. They were very concerned, and they were just trying to get me to go to the doctor. And honestly, that decision saved my life. When I showed up to the doctor and he took the blood test, he was saying he doesn't understand how I'm walking, how I'm alive, because I was already at stage 5 kidney disease and I needed dialysis. I was rushed into surgery to get temporary dialysis. Funny enough, I wasn't asleep. So for the temporary catheter in my neck, I was still up. I felt everything. I knew everything that was going on.
What was your initial reaction?
I was afraid. I felt every single thing that happened. And by the next day, I had to be on permanent dialysis with the catheter in my chest. I was a bit afraid at first because my mom was on dialysis. She was diagnosed with polycystic kidney disease. She passed in 2019. So I knew what dialysis was and what I had to endure or go through. And I knew that is a lifelong situation that I will have to deal with. It's very difficult, especially for a young person who's ambitious. A lot of my time is spent here at dialysis. I do 4 hours 3 times a week at 3 a.m. And also I still have to balance work. So it's very dampening on your spirit.
Looking back, now that you've been diagnosed, do you think there were other signs or symptoms that you may have missed?
What I would say, I was receiving symptoms before, swelling in my feet. I was always feeling tired. I was urinating a lot. And I also was feeling a pain in my back. And I used to make excuses for these symptoms. When I was feeling tired, I used to just think it was just simply tiredness from work, basketball, gym, and the swelling in my feet. I used to think that it was because of like tight shoes or just constantly standing at work. And I was never aware that it could have been kidney failure because What I realized is that kidney failure is a silent disease and it just creeps upon you.
Beyond dialysis, what other lifestyle adjustments have you had to make?
Very restricted to a liter a day, 1 liter. And that's hard because one, Barbados is very humid. And then two, you have a whole set of medication to take. And you try to ration the amount of water you use to take these tablets. Because obviously during the day you're very thirsty. So it's hard to balance. Usually I am using more than a liter because it's kind of inevitable to probably drink a liter a day. Outside of that, I would say the time that you have, you're always tired. Always tired. Dialysis is very draining. And if you're working as well, it's just hard to balance everything. I would say my social life, things that I once used to love to do, like going to the gym, playing basketball, going to the beach. I no longer partake in those things because at the beach you can't get the catheter wet, so I just stay away. In terms of the gym, I don't really have the time and also the energy to go to the gym.
What has the season taught you?
I would say that I gained discipline, patience, strength, and also my faith in God had increased because I'm just reliant on Him.
When we return, we're talking about Shoy's treatment options. Stay with us. Shoy, you've been diagnosed with stage 5 kidney disease. What are the doctors telling you as it relates to treatment options?
The only option I have right now would be a transplant. Without a transplant, I will have to do this for the rest of my life. I'm currently in the process of going through to receive a transplant. I have reached out to Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, Florida. So I'm waiting to see how much my insurance will cover, how much coverage I will receive. Generally, the cost of the transplant was roughly 700,000 Barbados. So I'm waiting to see how much coverage I'll get from my insurance, and the remainder funds I will try to use a GoFundMe and exercise faith that persons of Barbados or persons around the world would even donate to help a cause like this.
Are there no local transplant options available?
There are transplant options available in Barbados, but you have to have a donor and you have to have a match. And that's kind of difficult because majority of my family have underlying issues, and if they don't, it's harder as well because they don't match my blood type. What I would like is that there would be a legislation in place that deceased donors can donate their organs to persons in need. For example, livers, kidneys, hearts, and that would help a lot of persons on dialysis, for example, who are struggling right now. I believe that that could help the quality of life for someone.
Shoy, thank you for sharing your story. And thank you for joining us.